Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so glad you're joining me again today. Today I have a fun card to share with you guys, but I'm also going to share 3 different ways that I like to use my Karin markers. One for a focal image, one for die cuts, and one for the background. So you'll see those along the way, and let's get into the card now. Now I'm stamping this adorable little stamp by Stamping Bella. This is the Petunias in Love stamp. It's a rubber stamp. It also comes with a sentiment, but I'm only using the image now. And I'm stamping that with Versafine Onyx Black ink onto watercolor cardstock. This is the Canson Montval 200 GSM watercolor cardstock. I'm stamping that twice with my Misty, and I will also be heat embossing this. So I'm just adding some Wow clear gloss super fine embossing powder to the image, and then I can heat set that off screen. Once that's done, I can get into my coloring. So I'm going to color this image in with my Karin Brushmarkers, and I'm going to be pretty quick about it. So I didn't spend a lot of time coloring this. I just want to put some color down with my brush markers, and then I can blend that out with some clean water. And that's really how I prefer to color images like this when I'm using these brush markers. So I put some color down first with the marker, then with clean water. And to deepen up the shadows, I go back in with that same marker, sometimes a darker marker as well, just till I'm happy with the contrast between the darkest and the lightest shade in this image. So now you can see that I'm going in with a darker shade here, and I lay that down onto slightly wet cardstock, which I don't recommend. Sometimes, or some colors of these markers don't like to blend once you put them down onto wet cardstock. Some blend better on wet cardstock, so just experiment with it. I wasn't thinking I should have let it dry, because that's usually what I do with these. Now, especially for this bunch of flowers, I am really quick with coloring it in. I just pick a couple of flowers out that I color in one shade, and then I will put the color down with the marker and then blend it out with a brush and water. These are quite a lot of colors in such a small image, but I will repeat these colors in the rest of my card as well, so it will be nice and cohesive in the end. Now it just looks a little bit busy for my liking. I really love this image. It's such a fun one. I haven't used it in ages. I just found it at the back of my stamp collection, and I'm really happy I did. Now, here's the second thing I like to do with these markers, and that's not going directly to paper at all. I just put them down onto a slick surface. This is a laminated sheet of white cardstock, and I just put some water with them as well, and then I can brush them onto the paper as if they were paints. This dilutes the color till it's nice and soft, and it also makes it blend really nicely. Now, one more thing I figured out during this background is that I really wanted some dry brush strokes on there. And I figured that would be perfect with these markers. If you just brush them onto a brush, if you just brush the markers onto a brush, you put some color onto the brush, which usually isn't enough to paint with it, but it's perfect to get some nice dry brush strokes in there, which is a really fun effect to get in a background. I did that with the 2 colors I used for this background, just putting some brush strokes in there, and that's a really fun background. I'm really happy with how that turned out. Now I'm going to build a little bit of a wreath behind my image, and not a full wreath, but just a hint of it. And I die cut out these dainty leaves from a Mama Elephant die set. I will leave the name in the description below. And this is the third way I like to use these Karin brush markers, just directly to paper. If you put the die cut in a negative space with some painter's tape behind it, that will keep it nice and in place, so you can color your die cuts without bending them or creasing them. This is a really fun way to quickly add color to your die cuts. I even did it for these tiny little flowers. And like I said, I am using the same markers I used on the floral bunch in the stamp I used. For this card, I didn't want stark white cardstock, so I used all watercolor cardstock for this. So I put a piece of watercolor cardstock on top of a white card base, then put a piece of cardboard behind my watercolor background, and that will prop it up nicely to give it a little bit of dimension and set it apart from the card. And then I also die cut a frame out of watercolor cardstock as well. And I put some foam tape behind that so it layers on nicely. This oval frame is also from that same Mama Elephant stamp set, or die set rather, that I used for these leaves. And I am just putting on the leaves, just arranging them before I commit to gluing them down. And I propped up that piggy stamp set as well onto some foam tape too. For the flowers, I am just picking those up with a jewel picker and then adhering them down with that Barely Art Precision Craft glue. I'm alternating the colors and sizes of the flowers to keep things interesting, and I will also add in some gems later to give it some sparkle. Whenever I'm adhering tiny die cuts like this, I really love my jewel picker because it just takes care of it without any fuss. Same for these tiny little gems. As always, I am arranging them on my image before I commit to gluing them down, and I really recommend you do that because with embellishments, I often change my mind a million times before I commit to the placement. This one was quite easy whenever you're just arranging gems within some leafy die cuts. It just comes naturally, to me at least. But if you have just a wide open white space card, it can get a little bit difficult when you're doing embellishments. So once I'm happy with the placement, I just take that Barely Art Precision Craft glue again and put it underneath each of the gems. And that finishes up my card. For my envelope, I am taking some cream colored cardstock and I'm folding an A2 sized envelope with my We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board. I can then reinforce the score lines and adhere that envelope together with the Barely Art Precision Craft glue. I'm going to stick to a really simple decoration for this one, and that's just to stamp that gorgeous little stamp on there in a soft peach ink. This is the Coral Reef ink by Pinkfresh Studio, and I am stamping that twice because I wanted it to be a little bit more noticeable on that cream cardstock. These inks by Pinkfresh Studio stamp beautifully, and they also come in a great range of colors. I really like them, and I really like that they come in ink cubes as well. And that's it, my envelope and card all done for today. I am really happy with that background. That's the first time I tried that brush stroke technique with the Karin markers, and I think it turned out pretty well. I hope you like it too. I hope you like the card and the video, and if you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them. If you have any questions at all about this card or about the products I used, I will happily answer them, so make sure you ask them in the comments below. Don't be shy. If you want to see more of my videos, please subscribe to my channel, and you can also check out some of the playlists I have on my channel that will take you through some fun techniques or coloring methods, and I just arrange them for you so you can see all the cards for one coloring method if you're interested in watercolor or anything like that. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.